Miller's All Day is down bringing their popular brunch on the road with their new food truck. Today, I talk one-on-one with the owner of Miller's All Day, Nathan Thurston, for this edition of Quintin's Close-Ups. And if you haven't already, subscribe to my YouTube channel and like Quintin's Close-Ups on Facebook.
Nathan Thurston, welcome to Quintin's Close-Ups.
Thanks so much. Happy to be here.
Well, I appreciate it greatly. Obviously, you're the owner of Miller's All Day, which is right around the corner here, literally right around the corner. And I know that you all are busy as we speak right now.
Yes, sir.
And obviously, you have some great things in works, including a new location on James Island. And of course, now you have the food truck. Who is Nathan Thurston these days?
A lot of hats these days. Especially COVID was a unique time to run a restaurant. We had a lot of intermittent staffing issues and had to fill roles such as pastry chef and chef de cuisine and line cook. And we figured out how to get it done. But these days, business has been better than ever. Even before COVID, we've exceeded our record numbers before that, and even in 2022 we're ahead of 2021. So, but these days it's understanding where pressure needs to be applied to the business and where to strategize. But day to day, I'm either at the second site for construction, or we've got the food truck out this weekend, so I'll be on board that. So lately, balancing my time between the three different locations.
Where do you want to put the pressure on next when it comes to Miller's All Day?
Consistency. We recently got an accolade with TripAdvisor, which was #1 breakfast in Charleston. And we already were busy and were on wait often, hitting a 2-hour wait occasionally, and most lately up to 3 hours. And that becomes a very delicate situation where people are really expecting a experience they remember. And so consistency is so important, because when people come in with an expectation that they're going to have the best breakfast in Charleston, or they're going to wait for 2 hours, there's expectations that come along with that. So it's important that our service, our food, and the interior of the business meets those demands. And that's tough battle, I'm not going to lie. It's bittersweet, because it's very challenging to keep those standards, but we love doing it, and our team does very well at it.
And obviously, you all serve brunch all day long, and people love it. And I, of course, told you before that I love the chicken salad sandwich. But what are those other standards that you want to meet right now when it comes to Miller's All Day?
In regards to food?
Yes, sir.
We're trying to understand how, like for James Island, for example, our hours right now we're forecasting are 8 to 8. We're downtown, we're 8 to 3, and then 8 to 4 on the weekend. So we're going to have a slightly later day in service. So we'll have some more happy hour or early dinner menu items. And we're trying to understand how to balance that the best we can throughout the day. And through downtown, it's just our team is very aware of what reviews we get from consumers on TripAdvisor, Google, Yelp. We scan those reviews and look for feedback opportunities to make sure we're in tune with what the guests are saying. Because when a business isn't in tune, that's when it starts to slip and whatnot. So that's very important to us.
What are those opportunities that you're into now when it comes to, say, the state of customer service?
Yeah, it's challenging. I'd say that I feel that the past month or so things have improved, but previous to that, there seemed to be a frustration with consumers that they seemed a little bit less patient or on the edge, and especially during a wait, we observed a lot of those situations. And one of our challenges was if it was raining or inclement weather, that they would gather in the lobby of our restaurant. And they really, it caused some situations where we had to really dig deep and find patience within to take the high road and respond to some of I've observed some temper tantrums from people that are upset for how long the wait may be, or something about their experience was not exactly how they wanted it. And we've had to really dig deep to handle that in the correct manner and not return the same energy that we were given. It takes a lot of self-restraint and experience to do that. But we've got a great management team, and we really tried to push to, understand that the world's a different place right now, and people get frustrated easier, and they're really looking forward to breakfast. So we try to make sure that we deliver and give them a great experience. And it's challenging to do it 100% all the time, but we do pretty good at it.
I hate to ask this question, but I'm looking at it from the restaurant business, so I'm in it myself. What does the average consumer doesn't understand right now about the restaurant business?
It's a good question. I try and have a perception of within the business and from a consumer standpoint, and I think that that's paramount to our success. But I think that I observe a lot of comments online where people are like, I know restaurants are short-staffed, but I know your food deliveries aren't coming, but, and I think there was awareness of a lot of the challenges for our particular industry, but there wasn't really taking the time to understand what other challenges those challenges create. Like if our delivery doesn't show up on time, unfortunately, sir, we don't have, whatever you ordered, and we have to tell them that, and sometimes it wasn't welcomed, and we had to deal with a flagrant attitude over a very simple thing not being available. And sometimes you're like, wow, it's just a blueberry muffin. But at the end of the day, that I guess they were looking forward to that blueberry muffin, and maybe the last one they had was spectacular, and they're coming back for it. But to sum it up, I would say that there was awareness of the challenges, but not really taking the time to understand how that might affect us and create challenges that are out of our control. And when we are unable to deliver for various reasons, whether someone didn't show up or a product didn't show up, they're just not understanding. And I've actually had people look me on and tell me, I understand your frustrations, but, and it's almost like it was discounted. And, it was a very interesting time. And, we hear the great resignation mentioned to where people were walking out of jobs. Their COVID has given them awareness that maybe they need a life change. At Miller's, we've tried to reimagine, how we can be a better employee for our staff and how we can be more accommodating for guests, because this is truly a shift, and businesses have to go on, they have to adapt, and we found success in focusing on that and really focusing on how we can take better care of our staff, which in turn makes them happier and handle the guests in the best way possible.
Speaking of that awareness, Nathan, what are those other things that you're keeping your eyes on right now when it comes to the future of the restaurant business?
It's a great question. Fuel prices right now are really concerning. Seeing, 100% increase over last year. Obviously we're all feeling it at the pump. Over time, that is going to affect everything. Transportation gets food to restaurants. Fuel, diesel fuels on farms, and my business partner Greg from Marsh and Mill, we've been talking how this is going to be affecting us long term. We're likely going to see an increase in commodities, and a lot of us have already made increased prices on the menus because it's kind of necessary. We've been very hesitant, at Miller's, just because we're breakfast, brunch all day. We try and be very cautious on price changes, but I think that's going to be it's going to be right in front of us very soon. And we need to start thinking about what menu shifts we're going to have to make. Because at the end of the day, we can only charge so much for a product, and consumers are only going to pay so much for it without being unhappy. Right? So we have to go ahead and start thinking about how that is. And for example, we've already started stocking up on certain supplies, such as flour, right? Believe it or not. Ukraine produces a lot of wheat for the world, and we've already, I think we ordered 20 bags of flour the other day, just to be on, because we were warned that it may not come the next delivery, and that is just the tip. It is going to be coming a lot harder, and it's going to be more complicated on what products are available and how fuel prices are affecting that. So that's going to be a major challenge for restaurants ahead, and unfortunately, it has occupied my mind the past couple weeks, and I think it's going to be heavy on us very soon.
What menu items do you have to change, or would you change in the future?
I would hate that flour could be a catalyst for that, because flour is the backbone of Miller's. We have a great pastry chef. We bake everything in-house, including biscuits, croissants, everything of that nature, and flour is the root of that. I have been talking with Greg about, he operates a mill, how we could, adapt to that. And it's challenging. even with where prices of flour are going up, it may be challenging for us to survive that. So flour is probably the most concerning one I have. Dairy is going to be a factor. And of course, beef has continued to rise, and it's going to continue to, the fuel situation is going to be a catalyst for increased prices for beef as well. So unfortunately, the entire menu is at risk.
Wow. With all of these risks, Nathan, why a food truck?
Yeah, great question. Food truck is a very, we've all, well, some of us have seen the movie Chef, with a food truck, and I think there's a fascination with it, just like everything else, and we look at the glorious aspects of it, and we kind of forget some of the grind that's associated with it. And the food truck business is a very tough business. I've been observing it from the sidelines just in my years in this business, and of course, I talk to people that have done it before and what worked well, what didn't work for them, and a food truck by itself it's a challenging business model because usually your overhead is high and your daily sales make it difficult to run a successful business. We looked at it from a different perspective, as we already had a successful business and we were adding a food truck to add an additional revenue stream. So a lot of the costs and overhead that are uncomfortable for a food truck, we were already absorbing in the business. So the food truck just became another way for us to add another point of sale in other parts of Charleston and allow us to bring millers to the people in other parts of town. So Somerville, Kiowa, Mount Pleasant, a lot of these areas that are remote from downtown, it gave us the opportunity to take it to them. And we've had exceptional response to it. We actually had to create a Google form just to take care of all the incoming emails coming in to understand what neighborhoods they want to have it at, birthday parties, weddings. Unfortunately, a lot of things we're not set up to do right now. But this weekend we're going to be at Oyster Point, and then we've got Munkle Brewing coming up for the Bridge Run. So we've got some fun events coming up. But the reason we did it was we wanted to get more visibility in other parts of town. And it was something that we were very excited about. And I'll be honest, another reason we were doing it was when we were planning for it, we saw another potential situation where the restaurant could be reduced to to-go only or potentially closed because of COVID. And the food truck might be an outlet for us to get the business out there and still keep things going.
Absolutely. And, I think I saw you all at Munkle just a few weeks ago on my running route. But how did you get the product to the people of Mount Pleasant and Somerville before the food truck?
They would have to come downtown. They would have to wait. And, we always coach, people to come early, and, it's usually the best time. 8 and 9 is the best time to come to the restaurant to avoid a wait. But I think they avoided it to some degree. That's what we were hearing.
And I know you talk about the overhead and the costs of actually having a food truck. How did you write your food truck business plan?
That's a great question, because a lot of food trucks aren't, in my opinion, set up for success based on their menu. And you have to look at it that, a restaurant, a lot of times will be 3,000 to 5,000 square feet. And a food truck is, 50 to 100 square feet, and it's a very intimate working relationship.
Yes.
And we're right on top of each other. But we have fun. There's camaraderie in the kitchen, and a lot of us, that's where we've come from, and we enjoy it. But you strategically have to build items that have the best margin, profitability, and ease of execution to where that can be efficient for that model. So, if we take our entire menu downtown, we took about 10% of it and our most popular items, especially the home fries, and made them available on the food truck. And that's been a good working model. If we were to try to make the whole menu available, it would be very hard to execute, and it wouldn't be very efficient. Because, when people order from a truck, we perceive they want their food right away.
Yes.
They're not seeking to wait 15, 20 minutes like they would in the restaurant. And, don't get me wrong, of course, there's been some growing pains with the truck. There's been some situations where we had so much business we had to shut it down because we weren't able to keep up. And that's part of learning how to run a new point of sale for your business. But, fortunately, the guests were understanding and we handled it the right way. But strategically, you must build the right menu to be successful.
Well, okay. Do you have the energy and time to make sure that this is a success?
Absolutely. Yeah. I do. But let me clarify. I have a great team below me. We have layers of management below my role, and they are able to keep an eye on the business and aspects without me having to be there all the time. Of course, I'm present often because I like to understand how the business is operating, and I like to have a presence. But I do have a great team that in our organization, we went from a single location to a second location right around the corner and a food truck. So we've already added additional layers of management to staff that store when it opens, and we've had the luxury of having them here now to help us run the current business.
What is your future location?
So our next location is going to be at Maybank Highway Terrace Theater, previously where Zia was, and it's a great little corner spot or in spot on the shopping center. And it's smaller than downtown. Downtown we're about 100 seats, and James Island's going to be about 75 to 80 seats. One thing we're excited about, we have a nice large patio that accommodates about 30 people, and we're going to have an open bar, which I think is going to be got an open window bar, which I think is going to be very appealing for happy hour with our outstanding weather here. And that's a great little area, and we know in the daytime, there is a need for that there, and we think it's going to be very successful. But we're eager to get to that part of town. We think that a lot of locals that maybe avoid downtown because of parking, traffic, tourism, they can find easy access there.
Yes, indeed.
That's our hope.
Cool.
Yeah.
And where are you eager to go beyond James Island?
We've had a lot of invitations regionally, nationally, especially with our recent accolades. I've had a lot of people reaching out, specifically from Savannah, Greenville, Charlotte.
Oh, yes.
A lot of franchise opportunities, and we have no interest in going that direction. I like keeping things small and consistent.
Right.
Not to say that franchises aren't consistent, but they are tough to keep everything the same. But I would like to stay in the greater Charleston area, and I think that our next target will be somewhere, possibly North Charleston, Somerville, but it really has to be the right location for that. And we're keeping one eye open, but also focusing on the other two new businesses or locations we have. So we'll know when the timing's right and the location's right. That's no rush for that third one.
No rush there. Speaking of obviously your current successes, including the food truck, what is that success and failure rate for food trucks locally?
That's a statistic I'm not familiar with. Ever since I went to Johnson Wells at Culinary School, they were saying that 90% of restaurants fail in the first year or two, and I think that's probably a pretty accurate statistic. This market has some nuances that are different from other markets, but I think that the food truck, I would estimate that the food truck failure rate is higher than that, unfortunately. I might even say it might be 95%, because unfortunately, a lot of times food trucks are envisioned without a proper business plan or a proper understanding of financials and what those overhead costs are. And unfortunately, a lot of them go out. They may appear to be having a successful day, but they're losing money. And it's just not understanding the financials. And there's a certain baseline sales that has to happen for a business to be profitable. And that baseline is very rarely achieved your first month or two. It takes a long time to build, unless you already have a following. Right. And that was another motive for us to look at that risky venture and say, hey, we already have a following. I think people will show up. Yes. And it was correct, fortunately. Our strategy was correct, and people sought us out, and they even sought us out through email to get the truck to their neighborhood. So from that respect, we played our cards right on the truck. But I know for a lot of other past models or current, it is a very challenging business, for sure.
Absolutely. And how have you identified what you will do that no one else is actually doing in this area?
That's I think it's just our core values. We stick to them. We try and focus on consistency, being relevant to what people want, being accommodating. I've always, a lot of my training came from the sanctuary at Kiwa Islands, and a lot of those managers that trained me were from Ritz-Carlton. and a lot of those deep core values of really trying to make sure the guest is always happy, being accommodating for them. So instead of us having the opinion that, well, this is what we do, you're going to like it, and you should, it's more like, what are they looking for, and what makes them happy in this particular market, and being in tune with them and having open dialogue with them, like, did you enjoy this? Is there anything we can do to make it better? That's always the approach we've had, and I think that mentality is the right mentality to have when you're approaching a market.
Does this current market support another food truck?
I think so. And you can take that same question and gear it towards food trucks and restaurants. And what it comes down to is the product relevant? Do people think it's affordable? Are they enjoying it? And unfortunately, a lot of businesses and food trucks aren't going to check all those boxes, and they'll have a short life cycle. And another business will see that opportunity, whether it's a truck to go in and maybe it's an opportunity buy, or take over a lease that might have 5 or 10 years to it and could be a below market value. So from that perspective, I think there will be a repetitive cycle of more trucks and restaurants coming in. Unfortunately, a lot of times there could be something that had the end of a life cycle ahead of it.
What do people want right now when it comes to food?
I think it definitely varies per zip code. I will say I think the current trends right now, and plant-based diets are not a hot trend. Well, maybe they are right now. For the past 5 years I've been monitoring it, and just like the recent fuel situation, EV vehicles are going to become extremely more common, more desired. Food shortages are going to create other trends. Prices raising on beef or seafood because of fuel is going to create opportunities for other products. But on trend right now, there seems to be a surge towards plant-based. I've also seen people pulling away from pork a little bit in other parts of the country, which I think will be here later. Charleston has always been late to trends. And so not necessarily a bad way. It's just how each market has its own unique aspects, and unfortunately that's one for Charleston. Or maybe it's fortunate. Maybe it's not a bad thing that we're a little slower in some areas. But other trends ahead of us. Carnival food seems to be extremely popular right now. It's kind of fascinating, but those are the two I've been watching at the moment.
What plant-based menu item would you put on your menu?
We already have a couple. One of the ones we have right now is like a braised local okra with tomatoes for grits, and we use coconut milk instead of butter or cream. And it's a very popular dish. Ironically, a lot of people add protein to it, but it is a great plant-based option, and we try and have 1 or 2 vegan options on the bakery list. Moving forward, I think that there's going to be a continued focus on grains. Unfortunately, my relationship with Greg as a partner with the Millers, he's got a lot of great products on his farm that we get to continually cycle through the menu, like farro and Jimmy Red Corn grits. The list goes on and on. So I think that there will be a continued strategy to use different things and provide variety on the menu.
What other food trends are you looking at right now?
To be honest, I haven't had as much time to research as I'd like. So a lot of times in my free time, I might, which is limited lately, I might look at some publications that I keep up with. But right now, I'm really focusing on supply chains. And the other thing we're looking at is trends in Charleston with a rapidly growing population, and understanding how the different neighborhoods are growing as restaurant hubs, because they are. I feel like ever since the meters went up, I can't remember what year that was. I would estimate, 15, 16.
Yes, around that time.
Somewhere around that, when the meters went up, I noticed and it amazes me that is so symbolic, but I noticed we'll say a retreat from downtown dining, and then you started seeing a lot of restaurants popping up in neighborhoods, and that's continued to surge. Especially look at Nexton. I was just there last week, and I was like, this has grown so quickly. I think that we're going to continue to see, Charleston have that integration to where, Charleston's downtown's not rising, it can't, we're horizontally integrated, so we're spreading out, and I'm watching to see how those neighborhoods evolve, because I consider that fascinating, and I'd like to be a part of it in some way.
And this might be a redundant question, it is, but how did Miller's All Day keep up with this growth here in Charleston?
We were very fortunate to have extra storage space, and we've, been able to utilize that in ways to support the business. And so when we first opened our doors, we were able to do a lot more than we started. And so we've evolved that, and we focused on consistency and simplicity, so we can operate very efficiently. And that model has allowed us to serve people in a manner to where they enjoy the experience. We can make it, a reasonably quick experience without them feeling rushed or, anything like that. And that model has worked for us. And it has, we also noticed that downtown did, I think after the rioting we had down here, there was a hesitation to come downtown. I think that daytime dining had a little surge at that point. And we observed that, and we were blessed to have that, and it's never stopped since then.
Yeah. You talk about foods a lot in this interview. When it comes to the food truck, how is the food preparation different from the actual restaurant?
It's actually not, because we cross-utilize.
Yeah.
So, and then that's part of why it made sense for us. We already have a team that is every day peeling potatoes for the home fries. Our pastry chef's making biscuits every day. She's sheeting croissants. All those processes were already happening, and we've just expanded them. And then we take them and put them on the truck, and it allows the business to sell more as a whole, while utilizing the same prep team without creating a separate entity to produce. So that's why it works for us.
That's amazing. And what were those upfront costs that you obviously were higher than you realized?
To acquire a truck?
Oh yeah, for the food truck. What were those upfront costs that were higher than you actually realized?
I think that for our needs, finding the truck that actually accommodated us was hard. There was, when you start looking at trucks on the market, there's a lot of older UPS, FedEx trucks that present well, but when you really take a closer look and inspect the undercarriage and the powertrain, you see there's a lot of problems. So I think we underestimated what it would cost to acquire the truck that would benefit us, because we want a truck that we want something to get us through a year or two. We wanted something to be a long-term investment that we could use for 5-10 years. And we fortunately found one in Minnesota. It was a good bit more than we wanted to pay, but we decided to go for it. And I think it was the right decision. And we were very happy how the truck turned out in the end.
Now, how have you become your own mechanic with this food truck?
I have not. I have maintained delegation. And, I was fortunate to, I used to teach at Art Institute part-time as a culinary instructor. And had some great relationships as a result. And one of the ones I maintained was a gentleman named Brian that previously had a food truck. And we brought him on as a consultant to help us outfit the truck correctly, maintain it. It has 3 different fuels on it. Fuel, it has gasoline, propane, and diesel. And he's helped us maintain that truck. And of course, we try and use our resources. And this isn't the time to learn how to change oil on a truck like that. We'll take it to a professional and do it.
Yes. And speaking of obviously having a consultant on your team for the food truck, how will you approach regulations that will change over time with the general acceptance of the food and beverage industry?
Yeah, that's a great question. DHEC is a constantly evolving entity, mainly because South Carolina had its own code at one point, and we had to eventually adapt to federal code. And there is a constant evolution of those changes, and every time the inspectors come, we learn something new. And most of the time, they're flexible and help us understand what tweaks we need to make and give us ample time to repair them. And that's been our experience most of the time. I feel like most organizations understand that this business is It's intense right now. It's challenging. There's staffing problems, and to be fair, there's staffing problems kind of nationwide. So our experience thus far has been a lot of these entities are educational and patient, and I hope that continues.
Yes. And how do you hope Miller's All Day will continue in the next 5-10 years?
Another good question. The lifespan of a restaurant is usually short-lived, and usually if it's built on a trend or something that is hot at the moment, it may not be in 5 years. We tried to create something that was timeless, and the reason we wanted to do that is looking at the location of Miller's. We're beside Berlin's Menswear. We're on the way to Rainbow Road, beautiful part of town. We wanted something timeless, so Miller's was a diner concept, and diners, if they are executed correctly, if the food's good, the service is great, and they're consistent, diners can have a atypical lifespan, and we are going to push for Miller's to be a fixture in Charleston for the long run.
That is amazing. Well, I know you got to get back over there, back around the corner here, but Nathan Thurston with Miller's All Day, thank you so much for your time, and again, welcome to Quintin's Close-Ups.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.